Okay, I've been playing for a few minutes at these tables just to get warmed up a bit, but we're live here and let's get into it. So this will be the table on the right, this will be the table on the left. You can see my little mouse move around, and we'll get started. I can already tell that it's the middle of the afternoon and there's actually like looking to be some fairly regular players here. Like this guy's advertising that he's played 500,000 hands of poker, which is a lot. Jack 4 offsuit, easy fold, any position. When we're not playing, we can pay attention to our opponents just to see what their betting styles look like. Ten seven suited. This is a fold. Okay, we have a suited ace. We're in middle position. This is close between folding and raising. We will raise, but folding is totally okay. And our goal of raising is to try and get just against the first player that limped in. Limping in is generally a sign of weakness. We have two callers, and this will be a one and done. So I will bet the flop, and then that will be it. It's a terrible flop for us. We have no hearts. But again, we will bet once, and we will fold if anyone calls or raises in that instance. So that's an easy indication that we are no good. This guy's indicating a ton of strength by raising on the flop and betting on the turn. 10-3 suited is a fold. I'll go ahead and mark this Gin Fox if I can. This Queen 6 suited is a fold. See if I can mark this guy Gin Fox as a weaker player. Just put green for a weaker player. Just because I saw him just calling and then just calling someone's raise and then checking and calling on the flop last hand. So he will be a passive player at least. This 3-2 is a fold. This 5-3 is a fold. Let's see the action on this hand. Jack 8 offsuit is a fold. Once in a while when you're in the blinds, you'll be able to see free flops, which is nice. King Jack offsuit. So we're in a bad position being in the blinds because we can see a free flop from the big blind. Let's go ahead and do that. And again, simple. We have two overcards, a king or a jack. We have a backdoor flush draw that comes spade spade, which is about 16-1. But we really don't have anything else going for us, so it's a pretty easy fold there. Watching the left table, seeing this guy, he betting on all three streets. His opponent called, and then folded in the river. But we didn't get to see the showdown. The showdown is at the end when you get to see everyone's cards. Jack 7 offsuit. Just gonna fold that one, no problem. Folded the 7-3 offsuit. Seven six offsuit. Just gonna fold it. 6-4 suited. Just gonna fold it. And you can see how many people are limping, checking are playing fairly passive. This is a sign of weak opposition when you have people limping in and other people limping in behind them, just calling and checking. That's usually a good sign that the game is good. Another sign this Gin Fox is weaker. He's lost most of his stack and he hasn't reloaded. 4-3 suited, fold. 8-4 offsuit, fold. He limps again, another good sign. Okay, I have an offsuit ace-9. It is definitely on the lower side. We are in the big blind, so we paid 5. You can see there's already been a limp, a raise, and a re-raise, so it's a very easy fold here. No question about it. There's already been 2 opponents to show strength. 9-3 suited is a fold. 8-4 offsuit is a fold. Okay, so this is a suited 3-gapper. It's way on the lower end, but if everyone folds, if I'm on the button, this is an okay hand to raise because this player raised before us. We will fold. King deuce offsuit is a fold. Again, a lot of this is just patience. A lot of this is just waiting and waiting for strong hands. Queen 3 suited is a fold. So now we know this guy opened with king 9 offsuit from the cutoff. So he's fairly loose. Okay, we have a playable hand. 2 7s. We're going to raise. We have the button has called us. And that's it. So this is going to be 1. We're going to bet once, continuation bet. And then if he calls, we're done with the hand. He called, we are done with the hand. We're just going to check and fold. And there you go. He's got a jack. Ace deuce, just fold. 10 jack offsuit. Weak aces, like ace with a little card that's not suited, is a dangerous hand that a lot of beginning players like because there's an ace in there, but there's just so much against it. It is very, if you hit top pair, you're going to have a weak kicker. If you hit your kicker, it's going to be bottom pair. Like there's just not a lot of positives to an ace with a little card. Here we have 2 9s and we're in terrible position. So depending on how the action goes, will be determining what we do. If someone raises and 1 or 2 people call, we will likely just call, try and hit 3 of a kind. If only 1 person raises, we might 3-bet. Here we have ace 5. This player only has $1 left. It's close between, I think I'm going to 3-bet this player all in, but it's close between folding and doing that because his stack was so little. Okay, so here's an example. We've got just 1 caller. We're going to 3-bet. We're out of position. We need to 3-bet a little bit more. So we're going to go to 55 cents over his open. This player cold called a bet and a raise, so that's pretty bananas. Now we're going to bet close to the size of the pot. He goes all in. He may have a pair that's bigger than my 9s. He might also have 7s and 8s. This is a very close position. He did overbet substantially. I'm leaning towards a fold here. He could have ace king, but we're going to go with it. Okay, he's got a 3. So again, I mean, that was quite a stunning spewy raise. So I will certainly mark him as some sort of maniac. Hey, not him. He is a fish. And he is a maniac. Okay, so we raise ace jack. We got one caller. We're just going to bet again on the flop. King, king, jack. When there's a pair on the board, it's less likely that your opponent has three of a kind. This king three, we're going to fold. We're going to call this shove because this guy is very short. And I don't think he would do this with the king. It's just too strong. He wouldn't want us to fold. So he's more likely to have a flush draw or a worse jack. So there you go. He's got a worse jack. Okay, 9-10 suited. If we were on the button and no one's in the hand, we could raise that one. We get a free flop with the queen deuce, two opponents. We flop bottom pair, but there's a king and the jack on the board, which are bigger cards. We're just going to check and fold. Four two offsuit. So you can sort of get a feel that when you play only strong hands like big pairs, big aces, those sorts of hands, that they're fairly easy to play. Like that you don't get a lot of tricky situations where you might have, you know, one pair, like a bottom pair kind of hand or a inside straight draw. I'm gonna throw one 5-cent bet out here just because I rivered a pair and he hasn't showed any action, and he might call me with something like ace high. King two's a fold. Okay, two threes. So I usually look at pairs, specifically small pairs in position. You want to get in cheap. You want to hit three of a kind. So it's okay to just call if someone else has called already. If someone had no one had called, I would raise being the first one in. Here, two opponents, he did raise a lot. This isn't a fantastic scenario. Both of them have less than the starting amount. I'm going to fold this. I'm going to raise a suited ace on the button. Totally fine. When you have a tiny pair like two threes, your hope and goal is to have 3 or 4 opponents. And the reason for that is because you can get three of a kind. And if you get three of a kind, you want to have some opponents there that will have the second best hand, if that makes sense. So I just raised that last one, no caller. Is going to raise ace king. Again, another strong hand. We saw a free flop with 6-2, completely missed. Just going to check and fold. Queen 3, easy fold. So I'm just going to label this guy as some sort of wild man. I don't think I've seen him not call before the flop yet. Jack 3 suited on the left, going to fold. Free flop with the king 8. I fold. Nine 5 off, gonna fold. King 2 gonna fold. So you can see almost many of our opponents are on the weaker side, which is Obviously not surprising considering it's a $5 max buy-in game. But when you see weak opponents, you see limping, you see playing loose, playing passive. You want to be tight, you want to be aggressive. So that means you're not going to play many hands, and then when you do play them, you're going to play them with raises. Here's a weak ace. We're in the big blind, so we'll likely get to see a free flop. We will fold if anyone raises. There's a free flop. We flop a wheel draw, so a 5 gives us a straight. This is what I was talking about, semi-bluffing. So I'm going to bet this flop with a wheel draw. A couple of reasons. First off, because we're in the big blind, so a 7-3-2, we could have any two cards. It feels more likely to our opponents that we might have hit something on that flop because we have two random cards, and no one showed any strength throughout that entire hand. So it was a good opportunity to steal it, I guess, with a semi-bluff. This 10-jack suited, it's the kind of hand you want a lot of opponents in. It makes a lot of straights, makes a lot of flushes. It's really close here. If this player were to call, I likely would call as well. I don't like 3-betting it. I don't really like calling, not knowing what this guy's going, so I'm going to take the tight approach and fold. It's a pretty hand, but being out of position and not having the betting lead are the two negatives that made me want to fold that hand. So I guess step one is how good is my hand? Step two is what is my position? And step three is do I have the betting lead? So if your hand is good, you can play it. Also, if you have the position, you can play more hands. And also if you have the betting lead, you can play more hands. So, okay, Queen 8 offsuit from the small blind. It's going to fold. So this table on the left here, 3 people are sitting out. The 2 players left are very weak. I'll keep playing for a little while at this table, but 3-handed is a little bit different. You actually have to play quite a bit looser because the blinds are come around more often. Queen 3 suited, just going to fold. But it's still okay because these 2 guys are quite terrible. So I still think it's valuable to play tight and aggressive against these 2 opponents. Like this guy's just making outrageously tiny bets on the turn on the river there, like betting 10 cents into I don't even know how much. This is close. It's just blind against blind. It's kind of a unique scenario that only happens when you're playing really short, where you get a lot of those blind battles. I tend to raise from the small blind if everyone's folded decently widely, maybe 40% of your hands, and a queen 9 is certainly playable in that position. But blind versus blind is something that's kind of a whole nother category, and it won't happen that much if you're playing in like a full game. 8-9 offsuit, easy fold. 6-4 suited, easy fold. So again, we're playing very selectively here. 8-3 offsuit, easy fold. Playing tight is like the #1 thing. Playing aggressive is the #2 thing. We are tight aggressive players. So we'll be doing a lot of folding equals tight, a lot of raising equals aggressive. Okay, so we saw a free flop. There's 4 people in the flop. We are going to check and fold even with middle pair. We have middle pair, we have no kicker. There's a flush draw on board. There's some straight draws on board. Even if we hit the 8 of diamonds, we're not happy. If we hit the 3 of diamonds, we're not happy because it puts a flush on board. There's just a ton of terrible. I mean, that red 8 is pretty much the best possible card, but We still made a lovely fold there. Queen 7 offsuit gonna fold. And actually, that's a good example. There was a flush draw on board, so had we hit the 8 of diamonds, we would have felt like we had a good hand, but it would have been second best hand and probably would have cost us a lot of money. Okay, lots of folds here. Discipline, discipline. Waiting patiently. Ace 5 suited, this is close. We're kind of in late position. I'll raise with it just because we haven't had any hands in a long time. It's an easily a fold in early position. So we have 2 callers. And again, we're going to make 1 continuation bet, just about half the pot. If there's any action, we're going to give it up. Unless we turn a card like, for example, a diamond. Right? If we turned a diamond, then we could continue to bet. Okay, so we checked the turn and it got checked back. So that means our opponent likely does not have a queen ever, but he might have a 10. So just because our opponent checks back the turn doesn't mean that we just automatically can bet the river, because he probably has a 10 and we're probably still not good. And if our 5 that we rivered is good, then we can just take down the pot without any fear. So that would be an example. I'll look at what he had. He had ace king high, so he had no pair. He just had a jack, would have given him a straight, which he limped in, which is again a super passive play. So I'll mark him. I mean, you can pretty much mark most players here as sort of passive weak players. But yeah, so that was an example of getting to showdown as cheaply as possible when you have a weak hand, but a hand that might maybe be good. Like if I bet that river, he'd likely will only call me if he's got a better hand. And if he folds, my hand would have been good anyway. Okay, we got a free flop, just the 2 of us. I will fully bluff this just because this guy has literally made no offensive play. And now I'm just shutting down. Just shutting it down. Just check and check and check and fold. Check and fold, check and check. No thoughts. The reason I almost never bluff is, again, the golden rule. My opponents will be calling too much. So why would I bluff people that call too much? Okay, king and offsuit, fold. We would have seen a free flop, but no. I think this WMAC guy might be kind of sort of good on the right table. Okay, this guy limps in and then tiny 3-bets. Again, a sign of a weak but spewy player, like a weak and loose player. Queen deuce is a fold. He checked the flop and then bets full pot on the turn. Again, another sign of like, oh, we got min raise. That's interesting. This WMAC guy's always got at least top pair with a king, king, queen, or 2 pair even. Oh, that's interesting. He did limp raise with aces. And that's why you never slow play. You know, he literally slow played himself into losing a massive pot with aces. If he had a raised, he likely would have not had that player in there with king 4. And folding, folding, folding everything. Like it is a bit loose. Just looking at that hand with the aces. I mean, I guess raising king 4 suited on the button against 1 limper that this guy did is not a terrible play. I'm just going to go ahead and actually mark him as he's an okay player. The first okay player I think I've seen so far at any of these tables. Okay, premium hand, 2 kings. and a king 7 suited on the other table. So we're going to re-raise as someone raises. We have the button raise. Going to re-raise quite big. We're just trying to build a pot. This guy actually has a double stack, which is slightly concerning, just because there's twice as much money at the table. But again, we're going to bet the flop, and then we're going to evaluate after the flop. But again, aggressive. I 3-bet before the flop. I bet again on the flop. And we ended up taking down a pretty good sized pot without ever showing our cards. King 4, we're going to fold. 5-2, we're going to fold. Six, 8, we're going to fold. Okay, there's a premium hand, Ace Jack. We're the first. If we're the first one in, we're going to be raising it. We can 3-bet, that's totally fine. So we'll raise it, first one in Queen 10. It's perfectly fine to raise, it's suited. Is it big? Is it suited? This is optional. A tiny raise from a fishy player. It's actually, this hand plays well against more opponents, so I'm okay just calling here, especially because the raise was small. We don't really want to 3-bet this hand and then have this guy who's really short just shove all his chips in. Okay, so we flopped an open-ended straight draw. A king or an 8 gives us a straight. So that's a decent draw hand. It's twice as good as an inside straight draw. We have an opponent open lead. We can just call, we can raise. We're in position here. Again, another advantage of being in position. I think just calling is totally fine. I don't think if there was one opponent, I might consider betting to get them off their hand, but there's an ace in the flop. So again, people love playing ace reg. So I'm just going to check this, try and hit it on the river. And again, two opponents, I'm not going to bluff. I have queen high, likely one of them has a pair. This guy's got kings, I don't think he's folding. So maybe we get those two guys in that particular instance to fold, but people don't like folding pocket kings, even if there's an ace on the board. So I think we played that hand very, very well. Knowing all the information that we could see after the hand. Okay, we're 8-9 of hearts. This is one that we're in the blinds. We want to have a lot of opponents. We don't have any opponents. We only have one, so we're just going to fold. At 6 is an easy fold. Okay, we have an ace 4 on the button and ace 7 early position. I will raise this ace 7. It'd be okay to fold. This ace 4, we can actually 3-bet if this trips guy raises. If he folds, we'll just open it like normal. And we take down the blinds on the left. On the right, we have two callers so far. Both have position on us, so that's not the greatest. Interesting flop. We flop a gut shot. A 6 gives us a straight. We also have one overcard with the ace, and we have a backdoor flush draw. So I think this is an okay spot to semi-bluff bet. We're betting. If a 6 comes, we make the straight. We also have lots of cards we can bet again on the turn. If the turn's a heart, if the turn's an ace. We had the lead before the flop. It's a very low flop. It's less likely that our opponents will hit a 5 high flop. If the flop was like queen 10 4, we're not going to really continuation bet that, but you can see we bet, and even against really weak players, we had the lead before the flop, and we got 3 people to fold, and we had ace high, so that was a pretty good result. So free flop with a jack 7, gonna check. Flop nothing, check and fold. And you can see the propensity for people to call though. Betting the full pot and then calling the full pot. 6-10 to fold. 5-8 to fold. And remember that the better you are at poker, the looser you can play. Because when you play looser and you play more what I call marginal hands, hands like 7-9 of spades, for example, that would be a marginal hand, this 8-7 of hearts that we have on the table on the left. The more hands you play that are marginal, the better you have to be because you get yourself in a lot of tricky situations. Here we just have 8-7. We're going to go ahead and just call it. This is tough. We have bottom pair. We have a gut shot. We have a bad gut shot. A gut shot's an inside straight. If a jack comes, well, I guess we have an inside open ender, so we'll bet this. If a 6 comes, we make a straight. That's pretty good. We also have middle pair, but it's a very coordinated board, as you can imagine. So with both players called, so likely I'm just going to bet one more time because we still have that straight draw. I just want to see what happens. Okay, they both called. So they're basically, so we hit a straight, but it's not a good straight. 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, right? We don't want to bet this because any queen is a better hand than us, but we might just call the river. You know, we ended up rivering the best hand, but that was a semi bluff. So we bet with a pair and a straight draw and ended up hitting our straight. The reason I didn't bet that river, so just so you know, our opponents, the one guy had a 10, so he actually had a top pair on the flop. And the other guy had king jack, so he had a straight draw plus overcards. So we didn't have the best hand until the river, but again, if we're going to call because we have a pair and a straight draw, we might as well bet ourselves. And in that instance, it worked out well for us. Two easy folds here, no big deal. Yeah, I'm convinced this WMAC guy is okay at poker because he's doing all the basic things right, raising. 4-6 off, easy fold, 2 queens. My cues are okay, so we're gonna 3-bet this quite big because the button raised and then got called. So we need to go at least to say 45 cents. We have a slightly bigger stack than this W snipes, and we're out of position, right? So, I mean, I would stack off, meaning I'd go all in with queens, probably queens plus and ace king at a table like this. So the button folded. Obviously, the button can have a really wide range because people play their buttons looser as they should. So by 3-betting the button, it's more likely for them to fold because their range is so wide, if that makes sense. Tens, so this is a different situation. We're in a bad position, but we're just against the blind. So we're just going to raise, take it down again. Again, don't get excited about, I really want to win giant pots when I have a pair of queens or something. It's totally okay to win a smaller, medium-sized pot. We raise this queen 10. This 8s is okay. Sometimes I'll do something like this. I'm just going to put in a tiny raise here with the 8s. I'm trying to entice a lot of people to call to try and hit my 3 of a kind, but at the same time, I can also take the betting lead. So it's likely they're going to check to me. So this guy donks out and leads. He's a wild fish player, but again, on this board, king, queen, 3, it's okay to just let it go there. 5-7 is a fold, 4 deuce is a fold. Oh, we won 2 cents. Queen 3 is a fold. So I think something to be aware of is how rarely I'm putting all my chips in, how rarely I'm making giant bets. You know, I think my stacks are maybe up, some percentage since I started, but it's, not huge amounts. The pots aren't massive and going all in all the time. It's these little small pots that I'm just taking every once in a while. 25 cents here, 50 cents here, and hopefully just build. And then protecting myself when I have a questionable situation, making smart folds as much as you can when you feel like you're behind. King 10 offsuit, playable hand. We're again not in the best position. I think I'm going to raise this up. This is a weak player. I just want to have the betting lead. That's when I get against this one guy. And again, same idea. I'm going to bet on this flop. I have the betting lead. I'm just going to want him to fold, and he folds, and I take it down. That's the continuation bet. You show the strength before the flop, and then you have the betting lead to bet again on the flop. Queen 10 suited. This is another decent hand. This is another hand I'm going to try that trick where I'm going to raise just a little bit. This King 4 I'm going to fold. Again, I'm just trying to build a bit of a pot. I have position now. I'm on the button, which is great. We got both blinds to fold, just against sort of two weaker players. Okay, we flopped a top pair, which is a decently strong hand. It's very wet. This is an example of a wet board. 7, 9, 10, 2 hearts. Very wet. We're going to bet a lot, almost the full pot. With our top pair, we want anyone with an 8, anyone with 2 hearts to pay a lot of money. Okay, so it's an interesting turn card. Now an 8 is a straight. We don't have top pair anymore. We don't want to give away free cards, but we're going to bet, and then if they raise, we're going to fold, basically. Because if they raise on this turn, it's very unlikely for them not to have a straight there. And they folded, and we won. So again, we were tight. We had a premium hand. We were aggressive. We bet the flop. We bet the turn, and we won the pot. I think betting also with the idea of what if, you're going to bet this turn card, but if my opponent does this, I'm going to do that. So sometimes I'd say I'm going to bet and I'm going to call if they raise, or I'm going to go all in if they raise. And sometimes I say I'm going to bet and I'm going to fold if they raise, or I'm going to bet and I'm going to shut down if they call and then stop. All right, 7-6 off, fold. 8-7 off, fold as well. Okay, so this guy's clearly a bad player. So we're gonna fold because the small blind raised. 10-4 off, gonna fold. You can just tell he's a bad player because he just first went in the pot and he limped in, and then someone raised and he called. So he's a passive, loose player, it looks like, which are the kind of players we like to play. This guy's only got 16 cents and he just called. So weird. Oh, this guy had a royal flush draw. 9-5. So what is this guy limping in with? He had ace jack offsuit, which is a pretty strong hand, and a hand you should be raising with. But he's clearly a very passive player. So at least Jin Fox knows to raise his stronger hands. King 8 suited looks pretty, but no thank you. And again, we're down to 3-handed here, which isn't the best. Ace 10 suited, strong hand. We're going to go ahead and raise. There's been one limper, so we're going to raise a little bit more. Try and get just against the one player. That would be nice. 9-3 suited is an easy check fold. If we were to get 3-bet with his ace 10 suited, which we did, it's pretty close. He 3-bet quite small, just over 3 times the raise, and we do have position. So those are two positive factors. We also have a lot of chips, so there's a chance to make a really big hand and win a really big pot. So we're going to call here, but we do have to respect that he's likely very strong. He checked here. We have bottom pair plus an inside straight draw. I don't see any value in betting. He will never fold a better hand. And it's okay, the pot's already big. We don't want to get the pot too big. Now a queen makes a straight, so we're just going to fold. No shame in that. Ace 10 offsuit. We will certainly play this hand. We will raise it. And again, when someone 3-bets you at this limit, it's usually going to be geared towards stronger hands, big aces, ace king, ace queen, big pairs. People are pretty less likely to 3-bet with super strong hands. So we raised this one, the king 10, with one limper, and we got 2 callers. We're going to bet once against 2 opponents and then give up after this. We do have an inside straight draw. Jack gives us a straight. The opponent basically raised the entire pot, so he likely has something like a queen. He could have a flush draw. I mean, we have king high right now. If you consider we have 4 outs, we have 16% chance of winning. If we add the fact that maybe if we hit a king, it would be good, that would be 3 more outs. So that'd be 7 outs. That's 28% chance of winning. So if you look at the pot odds, we have to call, the pot's 268. We have to call how much? Imagine he's going to be all in. So our pot odds will likely not be there to call that. But that's an example of something you could consider. You could say, well, how big is the pot? And how much do I have to call? We're going to 3-bet this a weaker-ish ace, but it's just against a late position raiser. We flop middle pair. So again, the standard move, continuation bet, almost all the time. If he calls, we are going to check and call the turn. We have middle pair, and we didn't turn any more equity. If the turn was a diamond, for example, we might bet again. Obviously, if the turn is an ace, we would bet again. Our hand is too strong just to fold on the turn. And this is an interesting river because it would be scary for him as well as it's scary for us. So we're going to check and then fold if he bets. I think because he would have a difficult time betting a king, for example, even betting a king 9, for example. How is he going to bet a king 9? So I think this is a clear let it go. That was an interesting hand, though. Okay, I think we're going to shut it down after a couple more hands here. Just play out a few more. I think the gist of the concept. Maybe we'll be able to get one more big hand before we leave. I'll play this super weak ace-3 just because everyone's folded. I'm on the button, and it's just free blinds essentially. We got one caller. We have the nut flush draw, so that's perfectly fine to bet again. We're going to continuation bet against just one opponent. He calls, and now we have the nuts. So again, this is very exploitative, but when you have terrible opponents, I'm betting way more on the turn than on the flop. And he still calls. So this is, and he leads in half pot, so we're gonna raise, just gonna raise it all. Hope that he's just an idiot. And he calls. And he has a 4 high flush. So that was a good final sort of round of cards. We just allowed our opponent to spaz out somehow. That was weird, but oh, last hand. Okay, king queen suited. Raise it up. Okay, we got just the blind call, so we have top pair on the flop. We're gonna bet. We're gonna bet pretty good size. Just trying to build a nice little pot, and he folds, and we win. So there's the end of the session. I hope you enjoyed lesson 1, and I think we did okay. We had some fun.